Hello and welcome to this Write Book Author Talk. I'm absolutely delighted to introduce you today to the author of The Three Companions: Courage, Compassion and Wisdom. The powerful keys to happier work and a fulfilled life. Dr. Joan van den Brink is author and facilitator of learning. She is an experienced consultant and executive coach specializing in leadership and talent development, with over 2 decades experience working with senior business leaders and executives. She helps people foster positive change, champion diversity and inclusivity, and forge stronger connections through meaningful conversations. She works with individuals and organizations to develop their courage, compassion, and wisdom so they can create systemic change and create inclusive environments in which people can thrive. Welcome, Joan.
Thank you. Nice to be here with you, Sue.
It's
Delighted.
lovely to see you. I've been so looking forward to this. I was thinking back to the time when we met as you were in the process of doing your research. You were just come to the end of your research on the book, and remembering the wonderful conversations we had back then, and of course, it was were we still locked down, or
Yes, we were.
we were,
Yes.
weren't we?
Yeah.
And they were very heartwarming and wonderful chats that we had, and
Yeah.
I feel like it was a lovely time in a way. Um,
Yes. Yeah.
so yes, the three companions. That's what we're here to talk about, and to talk about you and your amazing work, and this beautiful book that
Thank
we're
you.
really really proud of, and that has, well, it's chock full of wisdom and beautiful stories about how people have used these three companions that you describe, courage, compassion, and wisdom, as being. Joan, shall we start off with you perhaps could tell us how, what are the three companions? Where have they come from in your life, and why are they important to you?
Yeah. So I'm a Buddhist. I follow Nichiren Buddhism, and courage, compassion, and wisdom are three qualities that we're encouraged to cultivate in our lives. And the philosophy behind this approach to Buddhism is around an inner revolution, becoming more of yourself, becoming a better person, then through that helping others. And I strongly believe that what you put into your environment is what you get back. A fundamental principle is that we are all Buddhas. We have a Buddha nature within us. And part of that Buddha nature is how we exemplify courage, compassion, and wisdom. And so the idea from the book came from wanting to help people realize that we all possess these qualities. Often when I was talking to my friends, they would say, "Oh, I'm not very wise. That's not me, or I'm not very brave." And I think, but the things you've told me about seem really courageous. So I wanted people to see what it looks like in everyday life rather than, people who do that as part of their job, go beyond, the people would hear and see about in the news. So that's where the idea came from.
It's fantastic. And then you went out and you talked to a lot of people, didn't you? Now this arose from the pandemic. You created a community, didn't you?
I did. So what happened was at the beginning of 2020, so before the pandemic,
Mm.
I quite unusually for me, really. I was doing some self-reflection, looking back over my life, and sort of thinking about my purpose. And actually, my son was staying with me at the time, so I got him to partner with me just to have another look at what I thought my life purpose was. And out of that emerged to create intimate environments so that people thrive. And I do that in my coaching, of course. And then I was thinking, so how do I live this purpose then? What am I going to do? And I don't know why. There must have been something in me. And I said to my son, oh, I couldn't write a book. Don't know where that came from. And he said, why not? You're a good writer. And I thought, oh, okay. So I actually started, and then I did some research about how to write a book, and listened to a talk by, I can't remember the lady now who runs writer workshops. And one of the things, a couple of things I took away was if you interview people, you get some unique data to build your book upon. So that's where I got the idea to interview people to create that data. The other thing was not to necessarily read everything there is in your field before you start writing, because you may be hampered by that. So that was great. And then the next thing for me was, okay, so what do I know a lot about and what can I write about? I know a lot about leadership because I've been a leadership and talent consultant, as you said, for nearly 24 years now. And I know a lot about coaching because I've been coaching for 18 years. But I thought there were so many books about that. It feels very crowded. So what else do I know a lot about? And that's where the idea for Courage, Compassion, and Wisdom came from. And so I started interviewing at the end of January, so before we went into lockdown. And then when lockdown happened, I found myself having lots of conversations with people like, what's going on? This is really unsettling. This is really weird. And I thought, why not create a community where because it felt like an ideal opportunity to actually demonstrate those qualities. So why not create a community where we can come together, just be ourselves, because in families or elsewhere, we have to be brave and strong and not show that we're worried. So that's where the community came from. And it's still going. I'm still running them.
Is it? Do you know, I didn't know that. And
Yeah.
how wonderful. Oh, how absolutely lovely. Because out of that community came these amazing interviewees that you got on board.
Yeah.
And these incredible stories around. So you asked them some basic questions. I know there were a couple of kind of key questions that that you asked people. I mean, you asked them a lot of questions. You had
Yes.
you really worked
Yeah.
it out for us, how you wanted to get this stuff out of them. But there were a couple of key questions, weren't there, that you asked everybody?
Yeah. Just to say, the community came out of the interviewees. I only invited people I'd interviewed.
Yes, sure.
So
sure.
the first question I asked, so there was, as you say, some questions I asked everybody was, so what do the words mean to you? Courage, compassion, and wisdom. And I got a whole range of answers.
Yeah.
Some people felt, they were way out of their purview. Some people felt that they fell into things like things that they aspire to. They're quite daunting and powerful words. Some people felt that they had embraced those growing up. So just getting a sense of how do people relate to them. And then I asked them to tell me about a time when they displayed those qualities. And I was flexible, so it didn't have to be all three. They could just pick one. And I listened out to see whether I could hear the other two, because I think courage, compassion, and wisdom do come together. That's why I call them the three companions.
Yeah.
And rather naively, I was surprised at the depth of the conversations that we had. Really touching for me, and I felt so honored that people shared their stories with me. I learned a lot about just hearing people's stories of what they've done. I talked to friends who I've known for 20 years and learned things about them I didn't know before. It was really magical. And then if I got the opportunity, I'd ask, when have you not displayed them? When have you shied away? And another question that I asked was, well, two. One, who else do you think I could talk to who might be interested? And what advice do you have for me in writing the book?
Brilliant. What a great way to go through this process. You know, a lot of people think that you have to do a book alone. You know, a book is a lonely thing to do. You know, I need to take myself off to my, you know, to my attic, and I have to, you know, sit there in my own little space, in my own little head. And you turned it into this incredible journey with all these wonderful people and dug out these extraordinary stories. And what I really love, Joan, is, and you know, you talk about this a bit in the book, is that, you know, you think of like people who are brave, you think about people who have courage, you know, and you think about the people, I don't know, you think about big figures in history, like who've gone through, you know, terrible things, you know, like, I don't know, Nelson Mandela, or, you know, the people who've had this incredible, really courageous people. You know, and what I love about your book is that it shows how every single one of us, you know, has access to any one of these attributes. We just don't always see it for ourselves. And I think you're questioning that gentle, clearly, you know, you're a very talented coach, and that gentle questioning that you adopted with them really brought out this extraordinary ability that we as very ordinary human beings have to, you know, to be courageous, to be compassionate, to be wise when we need to be. And I love that you talk, there's a beautiful, would you like to just share the parable that's in the book, that's in the, I love the parable because it's a great way to kind of sum up what this is about.
So I'll just summarize it. I have the book in front of me, but I won't read it. But it's two friends. So there's a friend that visits another friend who's rich, and he's fallen a bit on hard times. Stays, has a nice meal, has a lot of wine, gets a little bit drunk, falls asleep. And his rich friend sews a jewel into the lining of his coat, unbeknownst to him. And the host gets suddenly called away. So when the visitor wakes up, he's not there. So the visitor leaves and actually falls on really hard times over a number of years. And when he finally re-meets his friend again many years later, his friend says, "What's happened to you? You look so destitute." And his friend says, "Oh, I've fallen on hard times." And the person being the host says, "But I sewed a jewel in your coat, so you had the means all the time to actually get yourself out of this poverty." So that's the parable, that we have these gifts within us, but we may not be aware of it. And the Wizard of Oz tells a similar story.
Yes, absolutely, absolutely. The Tin Man looking for, you know, you tell us, because it's wonderful.
So you have Dorothy who wants to get home, and she meets the Tin Man who's looking for a heart, the Scarecrow who's looking for brains, and the Cowardly Lion.
It's looking for courage.
And looking for courage. And actually, when they get to the Emerald City and they find that the wizard isn't this great wizard, they have shown through that journey that they have all those qualities that they've been looking for. And Dorothy always had the power to get home.
Yes. And courage, compassion, and wisdom lay in those three characters all the time. And I think that's a really strong message that comes from your book, that, you know, we all have this extraordinary, as human beings, we all have this. We don't always recognize it in ourselves.
Yeah.
And perhaps we could use it more if we knew it was there, or if we knew that we had it. Like you described, you know, somebody saying, you know, earlier, just now you said, you know, I'm not very wise, but actually when you dig in and you ask people the right questions around what they've done, or what, you know, then there it all is, there it all lies. So how do you use this in your work, Joan? I'm really interested to know, you know, when you're working with companies, with business people, how does it work there?
So, a couple of ways. There's one in terms of the way I show up, and it's what I offer. It's also what I offer. So, I've designed. So, one of the things that came out of asking those questions was I did some analysis to determine what enables us to show our three companions and use them, and what doesn't, what gets in the way. And from that, I identify 5 conditions that seem to help. So self-compassion, personal values, personal boundaries, self-care, and a support network. And so I designed some half-day workshops related to each of those to help people sort of work on those aspects. To date, I haven't delivered all of those workshops, but I have delivered the self-compassion workshop. And that's so powerful for people, because it's, for me, it starts with self-compassion, particularly when it's about encouraging compassion and wisdom for yourself. You can show it to other people, you can show it to yourself. So being able to develop and enhance your self-compassion is important. So that's one aspect. And if I may touch on the community, because going through that experience, and I ran them 3 times a week up until earlier this year. Now it's 2 times a week. One of the self-compassion has 3 components. It's, you know, when we're not feeling great about something that's happening in life, our emotions we can either suppress our emotions, so we think it's not a good thing. Think about anger, oh, I must suppress that. Or we get overtaken by emotions. Oh, I was terrible there. Why did I always do that? And over-identify. So one aspect is mindfulness, noticing the emotions and being curious about them. The second one is about common humanity. So recognizing we're not alone. You talked about being alone for writing, but we're not alone in our difficulties. Lots of people have similar difficulties. And so it's recognizing the common humanity. And the third one is being kind to ourselves. Often, if a friend came to us with a similar situation, we would be compassionate, wise, we'd give them whatever support they needed, and yet we beat ourselves up for the same thing. And what the community did was particularly to allow us to strengthen that self-compassion. So we were able to share our emotions, about what we were experiencing, and not, because one of the ground rules was come as you are and don't feel you have to put on a brave face. And we learned from other people, so there was that shared common humanity, and we learned to be kind to ourselves. And what people said was that helped to build their resilience to go through the pandemic, particularly people living on their own. And so in the workplace, in terms of working with diversity and inclusion, one of the things I host are inclusion circles, where people can come and talk about their experiences of feeling excluded and not belonging, and feel safe. So, and part of that is creating some ground rules so that people don't feel they're judged, they feel able to be vulnerable, and they show compassion, etc., to others. So creating the conditions is one way in which I use courage, compassion, and wisdom. I wouldn't say I'm necessarily overt about saying that's what I'm doing, but it's about creating those conditions. And I think as a coach, I need to show those qualities, because when people come to coaching, they're coming because they want something to change. So that can lead to vulnerable things aren't working necessarily. Sometimes it's a reward. So they need to be vulnerable and feel safe to be vulnerable. So having the ability to show compassion in whatever situations they're working through, I think is really important. And having the wisdom to know when to intervene, when to give them the space, when to suggest some things. And the courage comes because I also am vulnerable. I might suggest something, whether it's an idea that I have, a thought or a feeling that I have. I don't know how it's going to land, but I think it's going to be helpful. So I'm also being vulnerable, and that takes courage.
Yeah, it's one has to be. They say they don't know that it's. It takes great strength to be vulnerable, and strength you could read as being courageous. Really,
Yes.
it is extremely courageous to be vulnerable,
Yeah.
and yet that I imagine is exactly what enables people to open up to you much more
Mm,
easily and to be more vulnerable themselves, because you've
mm.
shown that it's safe to be there, to be. Yeah, so that's amazing. Wow. And how do you use the book in, do you use the book in your work at all, or do you?
Yeah, I'm not great, I will admit. It's taken me a while to remember to even carry a book with me when I'm
Joan.
traveling. And I have a funny I have a funny story. So I'm also a faculty member for the Academy of Executive Coaching to deliver two of the practitioner diplomas.
Oh, right.
And we had a graduation ceremony in November, so earlier this month.
Mm.
And I took some flyers that I'd made at the time that the book was published, just to summarize what the book was about, and a couple of books for people to look at. And I was running a workshop on identity and coaching, and then involved in the ceremony. And when I at the end of that, the staff said, "We've sold your books," and I thought, "Oh, I need to do more in terms of actually promoting my book that way." Um, and now that the audiobook's out, I think that will reach a different audience. So I need to go back to my marketing. You wouldn't believe I have a diploma in marketing and I'm not doing it well for my own business. But yeah, I think finding ways to um, promote the book, I need to be better at that. Yeah.
But it's something that I guess, whether you are good or not at promoting it, but nevertheless, have you found that being a published author has been helpful? Has it opened up, more conversations, perhaps with people that you weren't expecting to have conversations with?
Um, it's opened up conversations with people I'm working with. So I do actually say to people I've written a book, "Oh, what have you written a book on?" And, "Oh, that
Yeah.
sounds interesting." And talking a little bit about, "Oh, I'm going to get that." So it does open up conversations. And as I say, I need to be more proactive around talking more about the book. When the book came out 2 years ago, I did write a series of articles on a whole range of issues, including particularly mental health, um, the Great Migration, or whatever it was called. You know, when people were leaving work, forgot what
Yes.
it's called now,
Yeah.
and different
The Great Resignation, I think it was
That's
called.
it, yeah.
Yeah.
And that was great, although it was quite challenging to
Yeah.
write, but
Mm.
that was really helpful. Yeah.
Brilliant. So, Is there any tips you want to share with anyone who's thinking about writing a book themselves? Anything that you might have to offer, having become a successfully published author yourself? Any thoughts for anyone?
Yeah, to enjoy the process.
Oh,
That was the
nice.
piece of advice that was given to me, rather than seeing it as a task to be done, to actually enjoy the process of writing it. Yeah.
That's lovely. And actually, you know, remembering back to you doing it, that was certainly something that I witnessed, was the experience that you had and how you turned it into one of community, of joy, of conversation, beautiful conversations with all these amazing people about these three extraordinary qualities and the three companions.
Yes,
So
indeed.
yeah, so huge thanks to you, Joan. It's been absolute pleasure to talk to you as ever. I cannot believe that our time is just about up.
Yes.
But for those of you who would like to know more, Joan's book, The Three Companions, Courage, Compassion and Wisdom, The Powerful Keys to Happier Work and a Fulfilled Life, was published in December 2021. So as Joan just said, just coming up to 2 years now, but very recently launched, and very excited about this. The audiobook has just landed, as they are saying these days, just published, and is available to stream or buy from Audible. You can get it on iTunes, you can get it on Spotify, you can probably get it anywhere that you like to get your audio stuff. So once again, a huge thank you to you, Joan. Brilliant to talk to you. If Joan has inspired you, or if anything in today's conversation has inspired you to look at maybe writing your own book, and taking that joyful journey that Joan took, then please do feel free to go to our website and book in for a discovery call with me, and we can just explore your idea. If it's just a fledgling idea, that's absolutely fine. If it's a bit more advanced, that's also fine. But therightbookcompany.com, you'll find a button on the right hand side that says book a discovery call, and I would be delighted to speak to you, probably in the new year now, but there you go.
And
So
Sue, can I just say, part of the
yes.
joy of writing the book was working with you and your team.
Oh, yeah.
Really appreciated that.
That's lovely, Joan. Thank you very much indeed. And I know the whole team found working with you absolute treasure you were. So thank you very much for that. And thank you for this lovely book, which we all really appreciate and enjoy. And yes, so that's it for now, folks.
Yeah.
We will see you at the next author talk. And thanks again, Joan.
Thank you. Really
Bye
enjoyed the
now.
conversation. Bye-bye.
Bye.